Good morning, everyone. This is Mike Romali here with a hurricane outlook and discussion recorded on June 2nd, 2023, recorded on 10 a.m. Eastern Time. We have a lot of things to talk about today, including Tropical Depression 2 located in the central Gulf of Mexico, and what to expect post-Tropical Depression 2, what else is brewing out there, and what else could be happening for the remainder of the 2023 Atlantic hurricane season. Let's go ahead and jump straight into everything. Taking a look out across the tropical Atlantic this morning, we notice that it is relatively quiet across the basin. We do have several tropical waves that are moving through the intertropical convergence zone at this particular point. You can see where my cursor is. We have a slew of tropical waves here. These will be impacting places like Trinidad, Tobago, Barbados, Grenada over the next several days, portions of the northern coast of South America as well. However, this will not pose any tropical cyclone development risk over the next 7 days. Also watching a couple of mid-latitude cyclones up here, one spinning away in the northern central high seas of the Atlantic. This is kind of cool to watch. And then a big slew of tropical moisture stretching all the way from the eastern Pacific and all the way into portions of the UK even, as this big slew of tropical moisture gets picked up by the upper level easterlies here, and really continues to carry this moisture all the way up into the United Kingdom. And of course, we have Tropical Depression 2 located in the Gulf of Mexico, which we're going to take a look in greater detail at that right now. So looking here at Tropical Depression 2 this morning, currently located in the north central Gulf of Mexico, we notice that the system has become a lot better defined since yesterday. For starters, we notice that the ship and buoy observations here, all of these wind barbs are both ship and buoy obs, and we notice how it is much more of a defined and more robust circulation. You can tell this is a closed circulation just by the way that the wind barbs are pointing. Now, this isn't a storm that is taking up a lot of real estate in the fact that the influence of the storm is not massive. So far away from the system, you're not going to have the spiraling winds coming in towards the system because it's just not a massively huge influence in the atmosphere. But if you also take a look here at the visible satellite animation, we can definitely tell it's a closed circulation. We notice that the cloud motions here on the western side of the circulation are coming from north to south, and on the eastern side of the circulation it's coming from south to north, and kind of you notice that spiraling motion in between. This is very clear evidence of a closed circulation, and we notice that most of the convection is located on the northeastern quadrant of the storm, and that's because we have a lot of shear that is kind of pushing this convection off towards the east side here. And so this is mainly bringing a lot of heavy rainfall to portions of the far coastal regions, not quite making it to the Florida Peninsula. However, we do have some storms that are just offshore. We'll take a look here at the radar in just a second. Looking here at the reflectivity, this is the radar composite shot from all the different radars here across the U.S., and we notice that we have the massive convective blob that is basically just sitting offshore. So that means that Florida is not getting too much of the impacts. However, we notice that on the outer periphery, we have thunderstorms and showers developing along a line from about Interstate 75, Cape Coral, Fort Myers, all the way down into the Everglades. And this will be drifting off towards the north and east, kind of wrapping around the circulation over the next few hours. So portions of coastal, especially the west coast of Florida, will get in on some of this heavy rainfall over the next couple of hours. And we expect additional development over the peninsula later this afternoon and into the evening. But the majority of the shower and thunderstorm activity associated with Tropical Depression 2 should remain well offshore, as the system is expected to keep a pretty good distance away. So we're looking here at the water vapor satellite imagery, and in the backfill, we're looking at the 500 millibar winds based on mesoanalysis, so up there at 18,400 feet in the atmosphere, roughly. So we notice, again, here's Tropical Depression 2 where my cursor is, and we notice that there's a lot of dry air beginning to impinge on our system today. And that's been the main reason why this storm has not really intensified as much and hasn't become Tropical Storm Arlene. But what we also notice is the 500 millibar winds here just away from our system are beginning to pick up roughly on the order of 25 to 30 knots just away from our system and over 50 knots over the western part of the Gulf of Mexico and Gulf Coast states. So basically what this means is that our system is going to start to not only encroach within the pocket of unfavorable moisture content, but also now is going to be starting to pick up to this trough that's in here. And it is going to be encroaching in the higher shear environment throughout the day today, which is very unlikely to support any significant organization and intensification, and in fact will lead to the storm's demise. And in fact, we can see additional convection that is stretching again all the way from the Caribbean through the southwestern Atlantic, producing with it some very heavy rainfall to portions of the island chain down here. Of course, Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, Hispaniola, Haiti, and portions of Cuba as well, getting in on some of this very heavy rainfall. That could also be its own threat in a lot of ways for producing mudslides and flooding rain. So the official National Hurricane Center forecast has this system currently as a tropical depression with a pressure of 1,004 millibars and sustained winds of about 35 miles per hour, moving to the south at 5 miles per hour as of 8 a.m. this morning. The system is expected to continue drifting off towards the south and east over the next couple of days, remaining a tropical depression, maybe some window to strengthen into a tropical storm later today. We'll have to see on the official forecast update here in just an hour based on some of the reconnaissance data. But irregardless whether this becomes a named storm or not, it does not change anything. This is expected to remain well away from the Florida Peninsula and then is expected to move into portions of Cuba over the next couple of days as a post-tropical cyclone and then kick back out into the Florida Straits, just bringing some heavy rainfall and gusty winds from time to time to portions of the Florida Peninsula. Looking at the official Weather Prediction Center forecast for the quantitative precipitation, or rather in layman's terms, how much rainfall is expected to fall within the next 5 days or 120 hours from now. We notice that the bullseye is located down there around Palm Beach Gardens and Miami, Florida, with roughly 2.25 to 2.5 inches of rainfall that is expected to fall within the next 5 days. More than likely as a result, as the system begins to drift around to the south and then pulls back up, bringing with it some more tropical moisture to portions of the southern Florida Peninsula. But for portions of north central Florida and the Florida Panhandle, rainfall amounts over the next 5 days will be very minimal, with less than 1/4 of an inch and in some locations less than 1/10 of an inch of rainfall expected over the next 5 days. Interstate 4 corridor southward, that's where the heaviest rainfall is likely to occur, especially from around Lake Okeechobee southward as we progress throughout the next couple of days as the remnants of Tropical Depression 2 move across the area. So this is a pretty big update. This was the forecast put together yesterday, the revised forecast from Colorado State University as of June 1st, 2023. Their updated hurricane season forecast, as you see here, is calling for 15 named storms, including the one unnamed subtropical storm that formed earlier in the season that was supposed to be Arlene. So an additional 14 named storms, 7 hurricanes, and they're calling for 3 major hurricanes with an accumulated cyclone energy index, or ACE index, of 125. So we're kind of slightly actually now pointing towards a normal to almost above normal hurricane season at this particular point. The main indicators for this are the much warmer tropical main development region and all of the associated favorability that comes with it. And although we are definitely heading in towards an El Nino, it remains to be seen how the El Nino and tropical Atlantic are going to butt heads in terms of how that is going to impact the 2023 hurricane season. It's very hard to gauge that at this point, but this forecast certainly indicates that we could be up for a little bit more of a busier hurricane season than what was forecast even last month. So if we actually take a look here at the sea surface temperature anomaly map, this is the departures from average. This was updated yesterday, June 1st, or the start of the 2023 Atlantic hurricane season. We notice that there is a couple of very important things to kind of keep in mind here. First of all, In the tropical and equatorial Pacific, the water temperatures are much above the long-term average, and we notice that by the warmer colors, and in some cases those water temperatures, especially off the coast of Peru, are roughly about 3 to 4 degrees Celsius above the long-term average, which doesn't sound very impressive, but when you're talking about in the water temperature department, especially departures from average, this is very significant because it basically reverses the entire atmospheric circulation that is normally present across that area during neutral conditions. However, in the Atlantic basin, we have all of this warmth that is sitting off the coast of Africa and stretching all the way through the main development region and all the way through the Caribbean. And this is also a big player because, again, this induces a lot of rising motion over the main development region. And with that negative PDO pattern off of the Pacific, or the cooler than average temperatures off the coast of California and the Baja Peninsula, that seems to be remaining in place at least for the next several weeks and potentially even the next couple of months, that might help to counteract the developing El Nino in the equatorial Pacific and might help to actually boost the Atlantic hurricane season to some degree. So I do think that some of the higher end predictions in terms of the 14 additional named storms, seven hurricanes, 3 majors, I definitely think that is a viable possibility given the pattern that we're seeing here. And this is definitely one of those more concerning looks, I would say, for the Atlantic basin. Not something obviously to be up in arms about, but this is certainly something that does have my attention, and especially if this warmth continues into the next several months, by August, September, October, this is going to be very interesting if El Nino doesn't develop as strongly and as quickly as we first thought. So with that being said, I do hope you have a great rest of your afternoon and evening. Of course, I am Michael Romelli, and I'll be talking to you guys again some more over the next several days.